Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fountain of Light Ministries. Today we are taking a look at our first video on the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically focusing on the Habakkuk Commentary. Now, the Habakkuk Commentary is really interesting because it is one of the most well preserved out of all the commentaries found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it is the only commentary that is found in the original 7 Dead Sea Scrolls that were found in the first cave, Cave 1 of Qumran. Now, before we get into this, let's just start with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for your love and your kindness, Lord. Please may you send your Spirit, may you reveal your truth, and most importantly, draw us closer to you. I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. So, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are three main kinds of scrolls. There are biblical texts, like the Great Isaiah Scroll. There are extra biblical texts, like the Genesis Apocryphon, for example. And then there are commentaries, like obviously the Habakkuk Commentary. Now, in this commentary, there is only commentary on Habakkuk chapter 1 and 2. There is no commentary on Habakkuk chapter 3 for whatever reason. And even within this commentary, they quote the actual Bible and then they have the interpretation underneath the text. And so sometimes that can be a little confusing when reading it. So what I've done is I have highlighted the biblical quotations. Like, for example, they'll quote chapter 1 of Habakkuk, and then underneath they'll say, well, this means. So I've highlighted the actual biblical quotations in yellow and the interpretation of the commentary in blue. So when we go through that, you'll see that way you can know where we are and that we're not getting confused. One of the things that I really find interesting about this commentary, before we get into this, which we will real soon, is that there are four main characters that seemingly intertwine into this commentary. These characters are found actually throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls, but in this commentary, uh, I'm actually going to make a separate video. So I'm not going to get too deep into this, but just to skim over what these characters are, we have the teacher of righteousness, the man of lies, the wicked priest, and kitten. Now, these are the four main things that we see here, that kind of words that keep repeating themselves here in this commentary. Now, going to the Bible, and we're just looking at the Bible, just trying to see where do these ideas come from. Once again, I'm just going to skim over this real quick. The teacher of righteousness. Let's be real here. Come on, let's just think logically. Teacher of righteousness would be Jesus. Jesus was considered throughout the Old Testament as as prophesied throughout the Old Testament as the Messiah, as the teacher, as the revealer. Of course, even throughout the Gospels, Jesus was called teacher, rabbi, master, all throughout the Bible, and he is our ultimate teacher. He is our ultimate father. Now, the man of lies, this comes from Habakkuk 2:18, which we're going to get into in the next video, in the next chapter of Habakkuk. Today we're just focusing on chapter 1. But I think it's pretty clear to say that a man of lies would be, from the Bible, when we're just thinking about it, the father of all lies, Satan. Satan who is the father of all lies, been a liar from the beginning. Um, and of course, we even go to Revelation, and in Revelation, he is that great serpent of old, that dragon, And I think that's something I just want to spend a little bit of time on here is Revelation, because of how Revelation just connects here, which is amazing. Back into Revelation, we have this idea of this wicked priest that keeps this wicked priest that we'll see throughout the commentary. Now, this wicked priest, I think, switch the words around on a wicked priest. What would you think that is? That's a wicked priest, a false prophet. And so we see a false prophet in Revelation with, of course, this beast, the dragon, Satan, the dragon. And so we have in the back of commentary, we have Christ, we have this false prophet, and we have Satan or this dragon. And we see in Revelation the exact same thing with obviously Christ in Revelation, the revelation of Jesus Christ. We also see that there is a dragon, the dragon, that serpent of old, Satan in Revelation, and we see a false prophet prophesied in Revelation. Um, but now what's really interesting is when we go to Revelation, we'll see that there is actually a anti-Trinity or a false Trinity against the Godhead, where you have the false prophet, the dragon, and the beast. With the false prophet obviously being here in this commentary, the wicked priest, the dragon being Satan or the man of lies. But then where is this beast? Of course, the final part. Now that's when I want to get into Kittim. I surmise that this beast being a nation is Kittim. Because even, of course, in Revelation, the beast comes out of the land, um, and it's got very and you've got the combination in Revelation, I believe, of Satan, who is obviously a spiritual realm, the false prophet, which is, I believe, some kind of a spirit of a church-like figure, or a organizational figure, and then you've got this beast, which I think in Revelation and from Daniel we see that beasts represent nations, which is why I find it so interesting that we have this combination here in the Habakkuk Commentary of Kittim, the false prophet, and the man of lies. Kittim being a nation, the man of lies representing Satan, and a false prophet maybe being, the false prophet in Revelation. Now, like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into this. I'm doing a whole thing on a whole other video on the big three here. But those are the big three that I just want us to be a little familiar with and get an idea of what their connection to Revelation is. Anyway, beginning here in the Habakkuk commentary, it says, "The oracle of Habakkuk the prophet. How long, O Lord, shall I cry for help, and thou wilt not hear?" This interpretation, this concerns the beginning of the final generation. Now, even just here, just to start off this entire study on the Habakkuk commentary, the literal first comment in the book is saying this is not for the time of Habakkuk, or even for the time when we're writing this commentary of the Qumran caves. This is for the final generation. I mean, it amazes me that that's how we begin, because I mean we've been looking at the actual book of Habakkuk, and on Fountain of Light Ministries we've done 3 videos on the 3 chapters on the book of Habakkuk. Take a look at them, and in our videos on them, I believe that the book of Habakkuk in the Bible is a prophetic book talking about the end of time. That's been my passion. Is the whole idea of it is for, of chapter 2 of Habakkuk, where it says, this vision is for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. I believe that the book of Habakkuk is all about the end, revealing the truth, revealing this, the final generation. And I'm just amazed here reading this that I'm not the only one who thinks this way. That before Christ, this was before Christ that this was written, and even before Christ, these people in Qumran believed that Habakkuk was a book for those in the lost generation. I mean, I cannot tell you how excited I am that I'm not alone on this feeling. Because, sometimes it feels like, you're barking up a wrong tree. But no, even the commentators from before Christ saw that this was for the lost generation. Anyway, anyway, moving on. Will shout to thee of violence, and thou wilt not deliver. Why dost thou cause me to see iniquity, and to look upon trouble? Desolation and violence are before me. God with oppression and unfaithfulness. They rob riches. There is quailing and contention. So the law is weak, and justice never goes forth. This concerns those who have despised the law of God. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So obviously this is talking about those who have, gone against the law of God. For the wicked encompasses the righteous. The wicked is the wicked priest, and the righteous is the righteous teacher. That's the interpretation here. like I said, the wicked priest and the righteous teacher will come into play here. There's your first mention, of course, of the wicked priest. Justice goes forth perverted. Behold the nations, and see, marvel and be astonished, for I accomplish a deed in your day, but you will not believe it when it comes to pass. Anyway, here, the interpretation. This concerns those who were unfaithful together with the liar, in that they did not listen to the word received by the teacher of righteousness from the mouth of God, and concerning the unfaithful of the new covenant, in that they have not believed in the covenant of God, and have profaned his holy name. And likewise, this saying is to be interpreted as concerning those who will be unfaithful at the end of days. They, the men of violence, and the breakers of the covenant, will not believe when they hear all that is to happen to the final generation from the priest, in whose heart God set understanding, that he might interpret all the words of his servants the prophets, through whom he foretold all that would happen to his people and his land. Wow. There is a lot to unpack in this one interpretation here. I mean, once again, this is all talking about the end. This is clear as day that this is not saying, this is saying that Habakkuk, the book of Habakkuk, is for the end times, the last final generation. And I mean, when you think about it, the final generation, I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? But now, even with that, we see here that what is this talking about? Those who violated the new covenant. The new covenant. Where have we seen a new covenant before? I mean, all throughout the Bible, we have this idea that there's a new covenant that's being established. Of course, even in Jeremiah's time, going back to the Old Testament, it says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah." You know, a, not like the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them from the hand of bringing them out of Egypt. My covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, declares the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. I mean, that is amazing. I mean, we've seen this idea, of course, of the new covenant when Jesus, this is the New Testament in my blood, which I shed for you. I mean, the idea of the new covenant is throughout the Bible. That we're going from the new covenant to the old covenant, the Old Testament to the New Testament, and I mean, keep in mind this is before Christ. So before Christ, at Quran, they knew that there would be a new covenant, and that this new covenant would be broken. Um, but I'm just going through this, even here where it says, um, that he might interpret all the words of his servants the prophets, through whom he foretold all that would happen to his people and to his land. I mean, this just goes directly to that Bible verse that I put after in every description of all of the videos that I've done on Habakkuk so far. Almost everyone has Amos 3:7, which is one of my favorites, which is, "Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets." I mean, God is revealing. He has revealed, and it's just incredible that how amazing this is. I mean, how can you read this Habakkuk commentary and think that this isn't new, that this isn't amazing? How can you not be drawn close to Christ just by looking at this? I mean, it lights a fire in my heart. Um, Anyway, moving on. For behold, rouse the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation. So, of course, we got the Chaldeans. Interpreted, this concerns the Kittim, who are quick and valiant in war, causing many to perish, and all the world shall fall under the dominion of Kittim and the wicked, something, and they shall not believe in the laws of God. Now, for me, just think about this. Think about logically. Like, just look at that. Just look at. I think it's clear as day right here. all the world will fall under the dominion of Kittim and the wicked. Where have we seen wicked? The wicked priest. Come on, I don't think it takes a degree to figure out that the word that's missing there is priest. But and if it is, then I think that reveals something really, really cool, because it shows that Kittim and the wicked priest are going to work together in a union, some kind of unholy union. Because I mean, we've seen throughout the Bible and even here in Revelation, all the world wandered off to the beast. Now the beast, all the world wandered off to the beast. I mean, in Revelation 13, 1 to 3. And so, of course, we see here all the world wandered off to the beast. All the world wandered off to Kittim. So this is why I believe Kittim is the beast in the unholy trinity. With, of course, you've got the false prophet, the dragon, and the beast. I believe Kittim is that beast, and the false prophet is the man of lies, and the dragon is the man of lies, and the false prophet is the wicked priest. But I mean, here's where we want to take this. I want to take this a little further. Because in Revelation 17, 4 to 3, it says, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting upon a scarlet beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple, scarlet, colors, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication." Now, I want to draw your attention to something really, really specific here, which is what colors are the woman wearing? Is this evil woman wearing? What are the colors that she's wearing? She's wearing scarlet, purple, gold, and then she's wearing a bunch of stones. Now, we've seen there's one other group of people that we've seen in the Bible that wear those exact colors. Now, or at least very similar colors. Now, in Exodus 28, 5 to 6, it says, "And they take gold and blue and purple," talking about the high priest, where they have gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen, and they mark the ephod of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen with the cunning works. So now, here we see that the high priest, the most of all, who represented, of course, all of Israel. That was the role of the high priest, is that he would go into the most holy place and sacrifice the blood for all of Israel. Now, the colors that the high priest wore were different to all the other priests. Most of the other priests would wear mostly white, representing holiness, or more dull colors. But the high priest wore blue, purple, red, gold, and blue, purple, scarlet, and gold, and then of course the ephod, which was a whole bunch of stones and we'll go down here. I'll show you here is the ephod. Talking about the ephod, with these 4 rows of stones with stones like the jasper and onyx and amethyst and emeralds. Each stone was supposed to represent a tribe of Israel, and of course with the ephod is that's how God would speak directly to his people, to Israel, was using the ephod to show um, one of the ways that they would speak to him, to Israel. So here's what I want to point out, though. Like I said, this scarlet woman in Revelation is wearing all of the colors of a priest except for blue. She even has these gold. She even has the stones and the pearls that go on the ephod, which, I mean, that's really interesting, but I think there's a reason for it. In the Bible, colors represent something. Nothing is done arbitrarily in the Bible. Everything has a specific meaning and a specific purpose, even down to the priests, where I think scarlet represents the blood that was sprinkled, of course, that the priest would go in the blood of Christ, sprinkled, and of course the gold represented the royalty and the throne, and purple was only worn by kings, so it represented the royalty. But now, blue is very interesting because in Jewish custom or tradition, the Ten Commandments were actually considered blue, many in Jewish customs. And not only that, but when the priest would wear blue, they would often wear a blue sash around. And that blue sash was supposed to represent the law, and it was supposed to be a reminder of them keeping the law. And so blue specifically represents the commandments or the law of God with, within the priesthood. So if you have a woman, now let's also keep in mind that women couldn't be priests. But this is symbolic. Revelation is all about symbolism. And keep in mind as well that just earlier, there was another woman who was seen in Revelation. In Revelation 12, right before here, 13, in Revelation 12, there is a woman who is representative of the church, who is got the sun and she's standing on the moon with all these stars around her and she's arrayed in light, and this woman gives birth as the dragon tries to take her away and she flees into the wilderness. And this woman there was meant to represent God's people, as we know that it's meant to represent the church. And so, in direct contrast to this holy, godly Christian church woman, there is this other woman, the scarlet woman, who is riding upon a beast, who is wearing all these different colors of a priest. And these priestly colors, except for blue, which I think means that this woman is a priest without the law, because blue represents the law. So she's wearing all the other colors of a priest. She just doesn't have the law. She has the royalty and the power of a priest, but she doesn't have the commandments or the law, which would make her a wicked priest or a wicked prophet. And I just think when you understand that just blows my mind. Think about it. This woman in Revelation is a wicked prophet. And not only that, but she is riding upon this beast. And as we know from Daniel, like I said earlier, is that in Daniel we see all of these animals that are meant to represent nations. We have a lion that's meant to represent Babylon, and we have a leopard with wings that's meant to represent Greece, and we have a bear with ribs in his mouth that's meant to represent Media and Persia. And so in this whole idea is that each nation is represented by a specific animal, and of course the final animal is being represented usually as Rome, is this beast that just destroys and tears everything. And so then here in Revelation we see this other beast who, if we're going by Daniel, if we're adding Daniel and Revelation, the beast represents a nation. Then we have this nation who the whole world wanders off to this nation, and this nation here is also has a woman riding upon it, or a wicked priest riding upon it. And now when we get to the Habakkuk commentary, I'm reading here and my mind is blown, because I'm seeing here, and this concerns Kittim, and causing all to perish, and all the world shall fall under the dominion of Kittim, just like it said all the world will follow the beast after the dominion of Kittim, and the wicked priest. Well, I think it says priest here, and if that's the case, then that is exactly what we saw in Revelation, with a wicked priest or a woman riding a beast, riding a nation. I mean, it is just it just I mean, I just find it so incredible. This cannot be a coincidence that it's that way. God does nothing by coincidence. Okay, moving on. We're going to finish this today. In good time, hopefully. Who march through the breadth of the earth to take possessions of dwellings which are not their own. Now, interpretation. They shall march across the plains, smiting and plundering the cities of the earth, for it is as he said, to take possessions of dwellings which are not their own. Okay? Moving on. They are fearsome and terrible. Their judgment and grandeur proceed themselves. Interpreted, this concerns the Kittim, who inspire all nations with fear and dread. All their evil plotting is done with intentions, and they deal with all the nations in cunning and trickery. Their horses are swifter than leopards and fleetier than evening wolves. Their horses step forward proudly and spread their wings. They fly from afar like an eagle, and avid to devour all them come for violence, and the look on their faces is like the east wind. Interpreted, this concerns the Kittim, who trample the earth, with their horses and the beasts, and they come from afar, from the islands of the sea, to devour all the people like an eagle, which cannot be satisfied. And they address all the people with anger, and with wrath, and with fury, and with indignation. For it is as he said, the look on their faces is like the east wind. Okay. They heap up captives like sand. They scoff at kings, and princes are laughingstock. Interpreted, this means that they mock the great and despise the venerable. They ridicule kings and princes and scoff at the mighty hosts. They laugh at every fortress, and they pile up earth and take it. Interpreted, this concerns the commanders of Kittim, who despise the fortresses of the people and laugh at them in derision, to capture them and encircle them with a mighty host, and out of fear and terror they devour themselves into their hands, and they destroy them because of the sin of their inhabitants. The wind then sweeps on the passes, and they make of their strength their gods. This, interpreted, concerns the commanders of Kittim, to who, on the council of the house of guilt, pass one in front of the other, and one after the other. Their commanders come to lay waste the earth, and they make of their strength their gods. Interpreted, this concerns, we don't know, all the peoples of we don't know. Um, the house of guilt is it's a really interesting word, or idea here. Who take counsel from the house of guilt. Now, in the Habakkuk Commentary, we're going to see a little later that there is this idea of the house or the home. There's like a council almost, um, of different evil forces, and I think that is pretty interesting. This idea that there are different leagues of evil forces and different homes with possibly different roles or things that they specialize in. But anyway, let's put that in the back of our minds for a little bit. Art thou not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. Thou hast ordained them, O Lord. For judgment thou hast established them, O Rock. For chastisement their eyes are too pure to behold evil, and thou canst not look on distress. Interpreted, this saying means that God will not destroy his people by the hand of the nations. God will execute the judgment of the nations by the hand of his elect. And through their chastisement, all the wicked of his people shall expiate their guilt, who keep his commandments, and in their distress, for it is as he said, too pure eyes to behold evil. Interpreted, this means that they have not lusted after their eyes during the age of wickedness. Now this caught my eye. This is incredible. I mean, look at this. It's saying first of all, it says that there is an elect. Where have we seen elect before? Have we seen elect in Revelation anywhere? I mean, look here, where have we seen elect in the Bible? Going back to Matthew 24. Matthew 24, it says, "For there shall rise false prophets," of course, false Christ and false prophets. So there we get to the false prophets, of course. Seems like multiple wicked priests. "And they shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they should deceive the very elect." Right there in the Bible, the very elect. Now, who is this very elect? It says this very elect in the commentary right here. It says his very elect, his elect. They are those that have not lusted with their eyes during the age of wickedness. They have not lusted. Lusted is a really interesting word to be used, isn't it? Out of all the words, lusted in that context. Where have we seen that before? Revelation 14, verse 3 to 4 says, "And they sung as it were a new song, and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song, but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and the Lamb. I mean, look, it's right there. It says, right here, it says, the 144,000 are those which have not defiled themselves with women, and then up here it says that the elect here are those who have not lusted with their eyes during the time of wickedness. I think that it's very clear that this is talking about the exact same people here. But it seems to add something to this in this commentary. This commentary isn't just repeating what's said in the what it's not repeating what's said in the Bible, because Revelation was written after the Habakkuk commentary, which is really funny when you think about it. That God, and it shows God's had a plan from the beginning, from the foundation of the world. He's had a plan. And isn't it just incredible that before Revelation, back in Qumran, somehow these guys had an idea that they would be an elect? I mean, and that this elect would not lust. And not only that, but like I said, there seems to be an addition here which says God will execute the judgment of the nations by the hand of his elect. I mean, that, like I said, when I first saw that, that seemed like that just came out of nowhere. Like, nowhere in the Bible does it say that the elect, God's elect will judge the world, or does it? Or is it not something new? Is this just something that was going to be repeated a little later? 1 Corinthians 6, 2 to 3 says, "Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world?" What? That's incredible, isn't it? I mean, how amazing! And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matter? Know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? This thing in First Corinthians just blows my mind. I mean, and I've said that a lot today, but really the Bible is so deep, as Tony says. It's incredible. Okay. O traitors, why do you stare and stay silent when the wicked swallows up one more righteous than he? Interpreted, this concerns the house of Absalom. So we go back to house, which is interesting, going back to the houses. This concerns the house of Absalom and the members of its council who were dumb at the time of the chastisement of the teacher of righteousness, and gave him no help against the liar who flouted the law in the midst of their whole congregation. So once again, going back to the teacher of righteousness here, going back to and of course the house of Absalom. Now, we saw a little earlier on that it talked about the house of guilt, and now it's going on to the house of Absalom. Now, I'll be completely honest, this is something that has baffled both me and actual scholars who have been studying the Dead Sea Scrolls their whole lives. It doesn't seem like people really have any idea where this house of Absalom comes in. It seems really random. And this is the only thing that I could come up with much prayer is I was thinking about the story of Absalom. The story of the character Absalom in the Bible is found in 2 Samuel chapter 13 and chapter 19. Now, how the story goes is that Absalom is the son of David, and he is envious of David and wants his throne. He wants to ascend to David's throne. And so what Absalom does is he goes and he stands on the outer gate right by David's court. And as the people come to David to be judged, Absalom spreads lies and puts doubt in their minds and their ears about the character of King David, saying that David made a wrong judgment. Oh, you should have gotten more sheep, or you were totally in the wrong. I mean, you were totally in the right, and David just didn't see that. He was unfair, and with all of that sowing seeds amongst the people and spreading distrust, Absalom finally actually builds an army and comes in and tries to kill David, and David escapes, and he runs off into the mountains, and he survives with Joab and the others, and they're running away in the mountains, and finally there's this big confrontation between Joab and Absalom, and Absalom runs away, and his hair gets trapped in a tree, and his horse runs off, and he's left dangling by his hair. And Joab finds him and ends him, much to David's dismay. And that's basically how the story of Absalom ends. But what's really interesting is I think there are a lot of parallels between the story of Absalom in King David and the idea of how Lucifer's fall in heaven to becoming Satan. I mean, both were children of a great king, and both desired the throne of their father, and both used the same, seemingly almost the same methods of sowing distrust and lies amongst the people or the subjects to to cause this rebellion against their king. And both obviously eventually die, and both were very beautiful, was what it said. You know, like Lucifer was known as beautiful, the light bearer, and Absalom it was known as the beautiful son with his hair. That was what he was known for, was being David's favorite, most beautiful son. And so I wouldn't be surprised if when it's talking about the house of Absalom, it's talking about the house of Satan who rebelled against God in that same way. So that's just the only thing I can think of. But even going with this idea of, the house who rebelled, and then it goes on to say, and the members of the council who were dumb at the time of the chastisement of the teacher of righteousness. So if this teacher of righteousness is Jesus, when was the chastisement of Jesus? Now, my first thought was obviously at the cross when he died. That's a chastisement. But then when it keeps reading here, it says, and gave him no help against the liar who flouted the law in the midst of their whole congregation. So, looking at this, while I first thought, yeah, the chastisement of the teacher of righteousness was the cross, when I thought a little bit more about it, it's saying that there were those who gave no help against the liar who flouted the law. So, and isn't that kind of what Satan did in the beginning? Is he flouted the law? Isn't that the whole point and the whole purpose of the cosmic conflict? Is Satan going up and spreading lies and dissension against Christ, spreading lies amongst the heavenly council? I mean, in Ezekiel, it talks about in Ezekiel and Isaiah, it talks about how Satan was spreading merchandise, and that merchandise is actually a great way for spreading lies, that he was selling lies or selling merchandise. Um, and so when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, this sounds kind of like to me the beginning of time with the selling merchandise, and those who maybe rebelled and fell with Lucifer, or those who were silent during that time. And of course, I do believe that there was probably when Christ died as well, if we want to go back to the cross, when he died, I believe that all the angels were silent. I believe that they were probably, we don't know this, but they must have been, all the angels in heaven must have been in absolute dismay to see the creator of the universe dying on a tree. I mean, that must have been a time of great silence. Um, but and the more I thought about it, like I said, Revelation and multiple other places, it talks about Christ being the lamb slain from before the foundation of the world. And and here's another Bible verse for Romans, just bringing up the idea of the law, that Satan does throw the law in our faces, and he uses the law, and that's because the law of God is God's character. Because God is love itself, love demands a law. It cannot exist without it. And that's not because love is hurtful or trying to just be arbitrary. It's the same way that if you have a child, you're gonna tell your child, hey, you can't run out in the street, or hey, you can't play with knives. Not because you hate the child or because you're trying to force them to do anything, but rather the exact opposite. Because if you love that child, you don't want them to get hurt, and so you're gonna make those laws. And so, like I said, for God to be loved, there is a demanding of the law, and that's why even in the Garden of Eden, that the law could God could not just change the law and say, Adam and Eve, I forgive you, the law is over. There had to be a price, there had to be a penalty, and that penalty was Jesus. And of course, we see even here in Romans, like I said, and the commandments which was ordained to life, because God is life, I found to be unto me death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandments, deceived me, and by it slew me. Therefore the law is holy, and the commandments holy, and just and good. So you see this idea even here in Romans that Satan used the law as flouting it, as I think the commentary points out, flouting the law in the midst of the whole congregation. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but like I said, I think there are some Bible verses that give us a little clearer of an understanding. Um, Going on, it says, Thou deal with me with men, like the fish of the sea, and crawling creatures to rule over them. They draw them all up with a fish hook, and drag them out with their nets, and gather them in their seine. Therefore they sacrifice to their nets, and therefore they rejoice and exalt the incense of their seine. For by them their portion is fat, and their substance rich. Interpretation: the kitten. And they shall gather in their riches together with all their booty, like the fish of the sea. And as for that which he said, therefore they sacrifice to their nets, and burn incense to their seine. Interpreted, this means that they sacrifice to their standards and worship their weapons of war. For through them their portion is fat, and their substance rich. Interpreted, this means that they divide their yoke and their tribute, their substance all over the people year by year, ravaging many lands. I mean, how many nations is this? Let's be real here. How many nations worship their weapons of war? Therefore their sword is ever drawn to massacre nations mercilessly. Interpreted, this concerns the kitten who cause many to perish by the sword, youths, grown men, the aged women, and the children, and who even take no pity on the fruit of the womb. The whole point of this commentary, like I said, is about Christ. It is about who he is, this revelation of something really beautiful. And this is something I want to point out here is that even here, when we go up and we see here, the chastisement of the teacher of righteousness up here, that isn't just arbitrary, because the interpretation right before it says said that it was um, interpreted. This saying means that God will not destroy his people by the hand of the nations. God will execute the judgment of the nations by the hands of his elect and through their chastisement. So we see here the chastisement of the elect. And then we see the very next interpretation is talking about the chastisement of the teacher of righteousness, clearly comparing the two. And I really think that that is beautiful, is the idea that even when we go through hard times, even as we get ready and get prepared for what we know is coming, for the end that we know is coming, Jesus went through it. Jesus went through our pain. And I think this is something that we understand it to a degree where we say, yes, Jesus went through my suffering. Yes, Jesus understands what it's like for me right now. But Jesus knows what it's like to go through the end of the world. Let's not forget that. I think that's something that just blows my mind is even Jesus. Think about it. When Jesus died on the cross, what happened? The sun and moon went dark. I mean, and what do we know in Revelation? What are the plagues? The sun and moon go dark. What happened when Jesus was crucified? The earth shook. What do we know that's going to happen in Revelation? In Revelation, the earth will shake to the point that the wicked will run to the hills, calling down for the rocks to fall upon them. I mean, Jesus went through the end times. And I think that's something, when you read it, and I think, I'll do a video about this someday, and I think just go read it and look for yourself. Look at all the connections between Revelation and the crucifixion, and you will see that Jesus actually went through the final end of the world at his crucifixion in in the same way that he went through all of our experiences, where Christ didn't only die understanding all of our pain, he died understanding the pain at the last days. And I think that is something that is so beautiful, is that Jesus understands you and that we have nothing to fear. We have nothing to be scared of because Jesus is with us and he has been there and he's overcome and he's won the battle. He defeated the false prophet, he defeated the beast, and he defeated the dragon at the cross. And he has given us his victory, and he is with us till the end. And I think that is an excellent way to close our lesson today. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for your love. Thank you that you love us so much that you sacrificed your life for me and for everyone listening, Lord. Please, may you be with us. Be with them. Guide in a way that only you can. Give us the peace that passes all understanding. And help us to glorify you in everything that we do, I pray. In Jesus' holy and powerful name, amen and amen.